Oh my god, we're back again. I'm sorry, I promise I'll never do that again. I'm just so excited because Game of Thrones Season 7 kicks off in a few days' time. And so to celebrate, I did that awful bit of singing, but I also compiled 7 of the most convincing fan theories for the upcoming season. And I'm not even sorry that I have my notes, because some of this stuff gets complicated. You might remember I made one of these videos for Season 6 last year, and quite a few of them ended up coming true. So if you're wanting to go into Season 7 completely fresh, I'd maybe give this video a miss for fear of spoilers. Come back to it at the end, see how we did.
But before we get into that, don't forget that for all your ice and fire needs, keep your three-eyed ravens peeled right here to GameSpot Universe. We have our weekly Game of Thrones discussion show, GameSpot of Thrones, every Monday, so subscribe to join our small council.
Euron Greyjoy is the current king of the Iron Islands, and he is a dangerous bugger. He is crazy and wants nothing more than total world domination. So in the show, we know that he intends to find Daenerys and marry her, and with her dragons and her army, he'll conquer Westeros, and that'll all be grand. Except his niece and nephew Theon and Yara got there first and have already formed an alliance with Daenerys, and part of that alliance was that she'll help them take Euron down. So it kind of looks like dragons are off the menu for Euron. Or are they? In the books, Euron gets cast out of the Iron Islands and spends a lot of time pillaging Essos, where he roots around the ruins of old Valyria. And when he's there, he comes across a horn called Dragonbinder. That's made from actual bits of dragon. It is 6 foot long, it's banded with red gold and Valyrian steel, and it's covered with Valyrian glyphs that glow when it's blown. Now, whoever blows Dragonbinder will be able to control any dragon that hears its call. And it sounds like it would be a big Deus Ex Machina for Game of Thrones if Euron could just rock up and blow a horn and control Daenerys' dragons. But that's until you translate the glyphs that are written on the side of it. They read, "I am Dragonbinder. No mortal man should sound me and live. Blood for fire, fire for blood." So Euron gets one of his lackeys to blow the horn for him, and his mouth and lungs immediately sort of char black, and he starts like smoking from the inside, and then he dies. So, bit of a risk reward, you can't blow the horn without dying, unless you're immortal. In the books, Euron raided the city of Karth, and while he was there, he captured some warlocks and basically tortured them into teaching him their dark arts and get them to basically cough up their biggest secrets. You should also note that he's been in Essos for years. Balon Greyjoy, his elder brother, he's not actually meant to be that much younger than him. And the people say that when he returns back to the Iron Islands that he doesn't look any different to when he left. So it could be that Euron is actually secretly immortal and that he could use the horn and bind Daenerys' dragons to himself. Call this a gut feeling, but I think my beloved Littlefinger's time is almost up.
As we've seen throughout the show, Littlefinger is a master manipulator who has worked his way up from literally nothing to being Master of Coin and now the Lord of the Vale. Everything he's done in pursuit of power has damaged the Stark family in some way. I won't go through everything, but remember that he was the one behind the initial event that led to the separation of the Starks. Lysa poisoning her husband, then Hand of the King, Jon Arryn. Among countless other things, he's the one who manipulated Sansa into marrying the psychotic Ramsay. But he has a weakness, his unrequited love for Catelyn, and since her death, her daughter Sansa. To be honest, at this point, I'm not entirely sure if Littlefinger's leching on Sansa is because he actually loves her, or because his love for Catelyn was such a constant source of humiliation for him because she always knocked him back. He's lingering on Sansa, and since Catelyn died, I suppose marrying her would not only give him the North, power he's always wanted, but also the satisfaction of finally being with Catelyn's daughter. Things might have worked out for him had Sansa continued to be on her own, but now she's been reunited with Jon at Winterfell, and from the looks of things, Arya is making her way up north too. That's 3 against 1. And last season, we finally discovered who Jon's parents are, and I imagine out of everyone in Westeros, Littlefinger will probably have already been well aware of who they were. I think this season he's gonna try and isolate Sansa, and by whispering in her ear that Jon is not the true king in the north, and that Winterfell should rightfully be hers, and he's gonna do that to try and isolate Sansa away from her family again. But I don't think that's gonna fly. Ever since being around Ramsay and Joffrey and all these people in King's Landing, Sansa's really grown up, and she's become a stronger woman. She's a manipulator herself. We've seen her do it before, which is why I think it's almost time for Littlefinger's games to come to an end. And I think Sansa's gonna be the one to do it.
It would be quite a fitting end, I think, for Littlefinger. If you think about it, there's a lot of nice symmetry in the way that the main antagonists have been dying in the show. So Ramsay was known as the Mad Dog. He was killed by his own dogs. Walder Frey killed everyone at a feast and then had his sons fed to him in a pie. It's quite poetic in a sort of way. But I think the real thing is, I just don't think there's anywhere for Littlefinger to go. Now that the real threat is here, I mean, you've got Daenerys invading from the south, and you've got the White Walkers invading from the north. His shit stirring's not really gonna get him anywhere. So, which is why I think it's time to say goodbye to my favorite little master manipulator. I don't like loose ends, and Gendry rowing away into the sunset at the end of season 3 is like the biggest loose end I can think of. So that's why I think he's coming back for season 7. You remember that Gendry is Robert Baratheon's final remaining bastard, and he has king's blood flowing through his veins. So Melisandre wanted to basically gut him like a pig so that she could use his blood for her dark, mysterious blood magics. The lovely Onion Knight Sir Davos Seaworth thought this was unfair and wanted to get him out of Dragonstone and out of harm's way, so set him up in this rowboat, even though he can't swim, and just, sent him away to freedom. Seth G119 on Reddit came up with a really good theory about where it is that Gendry could have gone and what he's been up to. He proposes that Gendry is in Old Town, which is right where Sam and Gilly are residing. So Sam is there to complete his Maester studies to go back to the Wall, and he knows about the White Walker threat, so he's going to be researching everything he can to help the Brothers of the Night's Watch defeat the White Walkers. Now we know that Valyrian steel works, but after the doom of Valyria, no one knows how to make it anymore. The secret was completely lost. So it could be in that massive library, Sam uncovers the secret to making Valyrian steel. And for that, he would need a blacksmith, which is where Gendry comes in, because he's an incredible blacksmith. And he had a reputation as being one of the best in King's Landing, so he'll likely have a similar reputation in Old Town. But why, out of everywhere in Westeros and Essos, would Gendry end up in Old Town? He can't really stay in King's Landing because the guards have orders to kill him on sight because he's Robert's bastard and has a very technical claim to the throne. He tried to go up north to go to the Wall, and when he did that, the Brotherhood Without Banners captured him and then sold him to Melisandre. So if he tried to go up north again, the same thing would probably happen. So maybe that's why he just found his way to Old Town, because it's actually quite far from the north and, a good distance away from King's Landing. Gendry's the best smith in the biz, he's got king's blood running through his veins, so I really hope worlds collide and him and Sam team up to create as many Valyrian steel swords as they can to help battle the White Walkers. Cast your mind back to season 1. We're in Winterfell and Bran has just fallen off that tower. I say fallen, he got pushed. But anyway, he's recuperating and old Nan is trying to tell him stories to make him feel better. And Bran just doesn't care about them. But he should have done, because it turns out that these stories might actually be foreshadowing everything. Remember when Bran retold the story of the rat cook, where the rat cook killed the king's son and put him in a pie and served it to the king, and he enjoyed it so much he asked for seconds? Well, that was a story that Bran heard from old Nan, and it actually ended up coming true in the show. You remember that Arya, at the end of season 6, killed 2 of Walder Frey's sons, made them into a pie, and served them to him. So that might just be a one-off, but in the books there's a really interesting quote that I don't think actually made it into the show. But Bran gets frustrated with old Nan's stories and says, "I hate your stupid stories," to which she says, "My stories? No, my little lord, not mine. The stories are before me and after me, before you too." This suggests that the events in A Song of Ice and Fire take place in what's known as a closed time loop. So if you want to go by the Star Trek definition, that means a time loop in which a time traveler who has gone into the past causes an event that ultimately causes the original future version of the person to go back into the past. So that kind of means, like, if you were to go into the past and change something, and by the time you get back to the future, nothing's happened, it's because you've gone back in time to do the thing you were supposed to do to end up where you are in the future. Believe me, I know. Imagine having to write this. So an example of this that we've already seen in Game of Thrones is when Bran walks into Hodor's mind in the past, which basically broke Hodor in the past, but enabled Bran to control Hodor in the future to hold the door. That's not him changing the past in any way. That was him going back in time to do what he needed to do in order for the future or the present to actually happen. So what does this have to do with poor old Nan? Well, she always told Bran stories about Bran the Builder. Now, Bran the Builder is a Stark ancestor who raised Winterfell, but also crucially, he built the wall. So it could be that Bran does his whole green scene trick and goes into the past to ensure that the wall gets built. And maybe when he's back in the past, someone asks him what his name is, and he automatically just sort of goes, oh, it's Bran. And that's who Bran the Builder is, it's him. And there's evidence for this because, from a weird place as well, from the Game of Thrones DVD box set, in one of the featurettes, you can see a picture of a concept art of Bran the Builder, and he's sitting on some kind of like a platform or a pallet, and he's been carried, which makes you think, is he actually paralyzed like Bran? But then when Bran went back into the past before, he could walk. So maybe there's some kind of incident that happens, but I really do kind of like this theory. What's also interesting is that in the books, this is another thing that I don't think made it into the show, but Catelyn tells Bran that old Nan has lived for so long that she sees all of the Bran Starks as one person in her head. She gets confused between them. It might be because she's old and doddery, but it could also be that maybe they are all the same person. Maybe Bran keeps jumping from one Bran to the next. That could be quite cool. When Cersei was a little girl, she visited a fortune teller called Maggie the Frog. Maggie the Frog or Maggie the Magi? Yep, that's right, some dark stuff's gonna go down. And Maggie told Cersei's prophecy, and basically it started off really good. She said that she was gonna marry the king. Check. Said that she was gonna become queen. Double check. Said that she was gonna have 3 beautiful children. Triple check. Even if they were with her brother. Anyway, the prophecy started out great and Cersei got everything she wanted, but then it took a bit of a turn. So Maggie said that another, more younger, more beautiful woman would come and take everything that Cersei holds dear and cast her down. And for a while we thought that might be Margaery because that girl put in some effort, but she died in the Sept of Baelor at the end of season 6, so it's probably not going to be her. At the end of season 6, Cersei crowned herself queen and is now sitting on the Iron Throne, something that Daenerys is traveling all the way across the ocean with a massive army full of Dothraki to come and reclaim, so she could definitely be the younger, more beautiful woman. But that wasn't the worst part of Maggie's prophecy. She also said, gold shall be their crowns and gold their shrouds, meaning that all of them will die. Triple check. Basically, through some fault of her own, all of Cersei's children have all died. You'd think that'd be the worst part of the prophecy, but unbelievably, Maggie had one more thing to throw in Cersei's face. She said, and when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands around your pale white throat and choke the life from you. Valonqar is High Valyrian for little brother, so you automatically think of Tyrion because he's younger and he's shorter. But hold your horses there because Cersei has another little brother, her twin, Jaime. She was bossy even as far back as being born and demanded that she came out first. So technically, yeah, Jaime is also her little brother. At the end of season 6, Jaime returns to King's Landing to find the Great Sept of Baelor on fire because of all of the wildfire that Cersei had planted underneath it to get rid of all her enemies. Now, you remember that when Jaime had to kill the Mad King, Aerys Targaryen, he did it because Aerys was gonna release wildfire and kill a bunch of his own people. And that was the very act that Jaime became the Kingslayer for. He wanted to protect the innocent. But now his beloved sister and, part-time lover is doing the very same thing. She's gone full Mad Queen. Doesn't really care who gets caught in the crossfire. So Jaime might be the one to kill her because he has to prevent this loss of innocent life again. So when Bran the Builder built the wall thousands of years ago. He got help from the giants and the children of the forest, and they imbued it with spells and magic to make sure that the White Walkers couldn't cross that threshold. This is the same magic that protected the Blood Raven's cave, which is why the Whites couldn't go inside. Now, last season, we saw Bran in this cave being taught how to control his powers, but Bran being Bran and the nosy little git that he is, he did some green seeing off the books and witnessed an army of White Walkers and Whites. And this is where the biffing of 1,000 lifetimes comes into play, because Bran's so scared of what he's seeing, he's not paying attention, and the Night King comes up and touches him on the arm, which might be harmless, but it just means that the Night King now has this kind of connection to Bran, and he now knows where he is, and it means that he can cross the threshold because the magic that's been keeping him out all of these thousands of years is now broken because of Bran. So after the whole upsetting hold the door thing, Bran is now traveling south. He wants to get south of the wall. He wants to get as far away from the White Walkers as possible. He wants to reunite with his family if he can. And to do that, he's going to have to go through the wall. He's going to have to go through the big gate. But as soon as he does that, all of the magic that's been protecting the wall and been protecting Westeros for all these years is just going to fail, and the Night King and his army can pass through.
And as we can see here in the trailer for Season 7, here's Meera and Bran reaching the wall, so we definitely know that they end up there.
So Bran, you did good for a little bit, and hopefully you can still do the whole going back in time and building the wall, that'd be good, but you've completely biffed it first. Azor Ahai was a legendary warrior who lived thousands of years before the current events of A Song of Ice and Fire. And when the White Walkers started to come into Westeros during the Long Night, Azor Ahai and his magic sword Lightbringer were there to help push them back. Now, prophecy has stated that another long night is coming. That's, why the Starks are all gloomy, keep saying winter is coming. And the prophecy also states that Azor Ahai is going to be reborn to help fight the darkness once again.
We definitely know that Azor Ahai will play some sort of role in Season 7. In this official shot released by HBO, Gilly is reading a passage in the Citadel Library all about Azor Ahai. And in the latest trailer, Beric Dondarrion ignites a sword, which could be Lightbringer. I mean, even though we've seen this sword before, way back in Season 3. There's numerous theories on who Azor Ahai Reborn could be. For my money, there's 3 standout contestants. Number 1, Jon Snow. Yep, the guy definitely has enough plot armor on him that he's quite likely to be the prince that was promised. He was reborn quite recently after all. In A Dance with Dragons, the Red Priestess Melisandre said, "I pray for a glimpse of Azor Ahai and R'hllor shows me only snow." Could it be the white stuff, or could it be Jon Snow? Okay, fine. Number 2, Daenerys. Prophecy also says that Azor Ahai will be born again amidst smoke and salt to wake dragons from stone. Think back to when Daenerys went into the funeral pyre. There was smoke, definitely, check. Salt? Well, if salt from tears counts, then double check. Dragons from stone? Triple check. But the 3rd contestant is something of a wild card. Jaime Lannister. Yep, I know I said like 3 minutes ago that he's the Valonqar, but hear me out, these 2 prophecies might be connected. Bird82 on Reddit came up with an incredible theory that Jaime is in fact the one who's gonna save Westeros. We've been thinking about Lightbringer all wrong. We've been taking this prophecy way too literally. We're convinced it's a sword, when in fact, it's a hand. In particular, Jaime's hand ablaze. Now there's a little nod to this back in Season 4 when the Reeds are talking to each other about, quote unquote, the end.
Will we know the end?
You'll know.
So we know that Lightbringer was made by Azor Ahai by forging a sword and then by plunging it into the heart of his wife, Nyssa. I said earlier how Jaime is probably the Valonqar, and certainly looking at this scene from the end of Season 6, he knows that after all the chaos Cersei has caused, he knows he's gonna have to kill her. By doing so, he would be fulfilling the Valonqar prophecy and the Nyssa prophecy in one fell swoop, sacrificing the one he loves most, and he'll end up with the power of Lightbringer. Now you'll remember that when Jaime lost his sword hand, Cersei gave him a hand made of gold instead. Bird82 noticed that the Valyrian words for gold and hand are, and I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, but Ixion and Ondos. Interestingly, the Valyrian for Lord and Light are Ixio and Onos. Bird believes that a translation error could have erroneously created the religion who follow the Lord of Light. This could be the greatest redemption arc of all time. Jaime going from the Kingslayer to the one who could save Westeros not by fighting the White Walkers, but by potentially brokering peace with them. Now, could you imagine if that's how the whole thing ended? It would be incredible.
So which fan theory tickles your fancy? Let me know in the comments below. Come find me on Twitter. I'm at Lucy James Games. And once season 7 kicks off, don't forget we're here every Monday on the GameSpot Universe YouTube channel for GameSpot of Thrones, where we'll be discussing all the latest episodes and fan theories. Join our small council. Join the conversation. Get involved in that comments box below. We'll see you then.